I slid my chair back a touch, sensing every pair of eyes around the dinner table zeroing in on me like a spotlight. It kicked off with a little dig from my wife, something about how I'm useless at fixing stuff around the house. I chuckled, figuring it was just her teasing, nothing serious, but she didn't let up. You should have seen him last week, fumbling with a basic shelf. It was like watching a kid wrestle with a jigsaw puzzle, she said with a laugh. Her mom cracked up first, then her brother, and soon the whole table was in on it. I plastered on a grin, telling myself I was probably reading too much into it, that she didn't mean to make me look small. But she kept going. And don't get me started on how he deals with pressure. Once, he had to call my dad just to swap out a flat tire. The laughter roared louder this time. I gritted my teeth but held my tongue, didn't want to stir up drama with her family there. I stared at my plate, trying to tune it all out, but my face was burning. I shot her a quick look, hoping she'd pick up on how uneasy I was, maybe dial it back. Nope, she was eating it up, loving every second. Then her brother piped up. Buddy, I'm shocked you even landed a wife. Good thing my sister's bar isn't set too high. The laughs that followed stung different, less like a jab, more like a dare. And then, as if she wanted to drive the knife in deeper, my wife leaned forward with a sly grin. Oh, please, we all know he's not what you'd call a real man. Dead silence. For a heartbeat, all you could hear was forks scraping plates. My gut twisted. My hands balled into fists under the table. A real man. I could have brushed it off, played the good sport, taken the hit like I always do. But the way she said it, so casual, so sure, like she knew everyone would just nod along, it broke something in me. Not rage, not the loud, in-your-face kind you see in movies. This was quieter, colder, like a blade. I scanned the table, their smirk still lingering, still getting a kick out of tearing me down. Then I looked at her. No shame, no regret, not even a glance my way, she acted like this was just another Tuesday. I swallowed the urge to snap back, to stand up for myself, to demand a shred of respect, because I realized something she didn't. This was the last time she'd get to drag me through the mud like this. The drive home felt like it lasted forever. She was glued to her phone, swiping away like she hadn't just shredded every bit of my pride in front of her whole family. The car was quiet except for the faint buzz of her notifications and the low hum of the road. I gripped the steering wheel too hard, my knuckles going pale. Her words, "not a real man," sat heavy on my chest, refusing to let go. I wanted to speak up, to ask her what she even meant by that. I wanted to know if she had a clue how it felt to sit there, laid bare, while her family laughed like I was some mistake she was stuck with. But I kept my mouth shut. She didn't say a word either. That silence, her total lack of care, said more than any argument could. It told me everything. When we rolled into the driveway, she finally peeled her eyes off her phone. "What, you're actually upset about that?" she snapped, her tone dripping with irritation, like I was the one making a fuss over nothing. I exhaled slowly through my nose, fighting to keep my cool. "Did you even listen to what you said back there?" Her eyes rolled so hard I could almost hear it. "Oh, come on, you're way too touchy. It was just a bit of fun." Fun. I let that word hang in the air, heavy, like it meant something totally different to her than it did to me. Fun, I echoed, my voice calm, almost too calm. "So, when you said I'm not a real man, that was just you being funny? Not what you really think?" She let out a big, dramatic sigh, like I was wearing her out with this talk. "You take everything so personally. My family's always tossing around jokes like that." "It's no big thing." "No big thing," I mumbled, nodding more to myself than her, because it was clicking now. This wasn't just about one lousy dinner. It wasn't a one-off jab she didn't mean. This was how she viewed me, how she'd always viewed me, and she wasn't even sorry. She didn't care. I climbed out of the car without another word, closing the door with a soft thud. She stayed put for a sec, probably expecting me to shake it off like I usually do. But I was done with that. Not this time. I walked into the house without looking back. The front door clicked shut, locking in the stillness. She was still out in the car, probably back on her phone, waiting for me to snap out of it. But I wasn't going to. I stood in a shadowy hallway for a moment, taking in the home we'd put together, or at least the one I thought we'd built as a team. Everything felt off now, the framed photos on the walls, the couch we'd argued over at the store, even the faint whiff of her perfume in the air. It was like I was standing in someone else's life, not mine. I took a deep breath and headed to the bedroom. The front door finally creaked open, and her heels clicked against the hardwood. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. She marched straight to the bathroom, and soon I heard the faucet running. I sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the floorboards. I don't know how long I sat there, but at some point, my mind shifted from replaying the night to figuring out what came next. I wasn't going to hash it out with her. I wasn't going to plead for her respect. I was through playing that part. So, I made a decision. No slamming doors, no tossing stuff around, no big announcement about what I was doing. I just stopped. It started small. I didn't wake up one day and decide I was a brand new guy. I just let go. I quit starting conversations. If she wanted to chat, she could come to me. If not, I wasn't chasing her down. I stopped planning date nights. If she wanted to hang out, she could make it happen. If not, I wasn't begging. I turned my focus inward, something I hadn't done in forever. I started hitting the gym regularly, not to impress her, but because I wanted to feel solid again. I dove into projects I'd been putting off, stuff I'd always wanted to tackle. I quit waiting for her to notice me, and bit by bit, I realized something. I'd spent so long trying to measure up to her standards that I never stopped to ask if she measured up to mine. Now I had my answer, and it wasn't good. At first, she didn't seem to catch on. Or maybe she did and just figured I'd bounce back, like always. Days turned into weeks. I stayed quiet, but it wasn't the silent treatment she might have expected. I wasn't trying to guilt her into chasing me. It was different. I'd checked out completely. She carried on with her daily grind like nothing was different, rolling out of bed, glued to her phone, brewing coffee, and heading to work without so much as a sideways glance at me. Usually, I'd be the one to bridge the gap, tossing out small talk or some desperate bid to get her to notice me again. Not now. I wasn't mad. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just stopped giving a damn. That's when she started to notice. It started small. She'd ask what time I'd be back, which wasn't like her at all. She began dropping little comments about my routine, noting how I was spending more hours at the gym, at the office, or just anywhere but home. "You've been kinda distant lately," she said one night as I was grabbing my keys to head out. I shrugged, tugging on my coat. "Just got a lot going on." She didn't like that response, I could see it in her face. I wasn't acting like the guy she was used to steering like a puppet. I wasn't the one always reaching out, always scrambling to keep her happy, and that change was rattling her. Then the snarky jab started. "Hitting the gym so much lately, got someone you're trying to show off for? Oh, look at you with actual plans. That's a first." She was poking at me, waiting for me to bite, to argue, to show I still cared enough to play her game. But I didn't take the bait. And that got under her skin more than any shouting match ever would. One evening, she switched tactics. We were parked on opposite ends of the couch, some random TV show droning in the background, ignored. She scooted closer, her hand resting lightly on my arm. It was the first time in weeks she'd shown me any kind of warmth. I didn't shrug her off, but I didn't lean into it either. "It feels like things have been weird between us," she said, her voice softer than I was used to. "Don't you feel it too?" I looked over at her, locking eyes for what felt like the first time in ages. "Were things weird?" "Nah," she was just starting to feel the void I'd been living with for way too long. I let the silence stretch for a moment before answering. "Yeah," I said, keeping it short. She paused, waiting for me to keep going, to do what I always did, offer a fix, promise to step up, swear I'd try harder. But I didn't give her that. That's when it hit her that I wasn't the one who had to prove anything anymore. After that, she started keeping tabs on me. I could feel her eyes following me when I walked by, lingering a little longer than before. She'd glance at my phone when it buzzed on the counter. She wasn't used to this me, the guy who didn't rush to patch things up, who didn't crave her approval, who didn't need her to sign off on his worth. The more I pulled back, the harder she tried to reel me in. She started asking stuff she never cared about before. "Where you headed? Who's that you're meeting? Why were you out so late?" There was a sharpness in her tone, something new. Not worry, not jealousy, it was panic. Panic that she was losing the grip she used to have on me without breaking a sweat. I wasn't hiding anything. I'd answer if I felt like it, shrug if I didn't. My world didn't spin around earning her thumbs up anymore, and for the first time, she was the one left second-guessing. Then came another family dinner, a rerun of the last one. She probably thought enough time had passed, that I'd let it all go. She giggled at some private joke with her brother, reaching over to touch my arm, trying to pull me into the moment. But I wasn't biting. I was there at the table, sure, but I wasn't really there. The same folks who'd ripped into me weeks back picked up on it. "You're awfully quiet tonight," her mom said, raising an eyebrow. I flashed a polite smile and took a swig of my drink. Not much to add. My wife let out an awkward chuckle. "He's been such a grump lately," she said, glancing my way, hoping I'd toss back a quip to smooth things over and show her everything was okay. But things weren't okay, and I wasn't about to fake it. Her brother grinned, smelling blood in the water. "Still trying to figure out how to be a real man, or you finally cracked the code?" The old me would have brushed it off with a laugh, scrambled to prove my worth, done whatever it took to get a nod of approval. Now. I just stared him down, holding his gaze until he realized I wasn't here for games anymore. His grin slipped away, and that was that. I didn't need to argue or beg for respect they'd never give. My silence spoke louder than words, and this time, they felt the weight of it. The dinner dragged on, but the vibe had changed. My wife was restless, shifting in her seat, thrown off by how things were unfolding. She wasn't used to this setup, me not playing along, her not calling the shots. For the first time, she seemed unsure of her footing, while I'd never been more certain of mine. I didn't fit in that room anymore. The ride home felt different this time. She wasn't buried in her phone, acting like everything was fine. She just stared out the windshield, her fingers tapping nervously on her leg. The air was thick with tension, but I didn't break it. I let her stew in the quiet. I pulled into the driveway, shifted into park, and got out without a word. Her heels clicked behind me, faster than usual, like she was hurrying to keep up. The second the front door shut, she let loose. What was that all about? I turned to face her, meeting her eyes for the first time that night. "What are you talking about?" She huffed, folding her arms tight. "Don't play dumb. You sat there all night like you didn't know anybody, like you couldn't be bothered to join in." I tilted my head a bit. Was I supposed to chime in? Her jaw clenched. "Are you still hung up on that dumb joke?" "That was ages ago." I let out a long breath. There it was, she still didn't get it. "This isn't about the joke," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's about me finally seeing things clearly." She let out a sharp, sarcastic laugh. "Oh, great, lay it on me, what's the big revelation?" I didn't take the bait. I wasn't here to bicker or make her see my side. That train had left the station. "For years, I tried," I said plainly. "Tried to be enough for you, to measure up, to fit whatever mold of a real man you and your family think I'm supposed to fill. Her arms fell to her sides. So, what, you're just done now? I nodded. Yep, I'm done. For a second, she was speechless. Then she exhaled, shaking her head. You're being ridiculous. I almost cracked a smile, not because it was funny, but because it was so her. Keep telling yourself that, I said, brushing past her toward the bedroom. I yanked a duffel bag from the closet and started tossing clothes inside. She stormed in after me, her voice getting louder. Oh, so that's it? You're just walking out, just like that? I zipped the bag shut. Yeah, just like that. She let out a harsh laugh. What, you think this is some big punishment? That I'm gonna beg you to stick around? I turned to look at her one last time. Nah, I think you'll do what you always do, act like you don't care, like you're better off without me. And maybe you are. I hoisted the bag over my shoulder and stepped past her. But so am I. I stepped out the door without a backward glance. No shouting, no big, movie-style farewell. She didn't deserve that kind of exit. I can't recall exactly how long I cruised around that night. I wasn't in a hurry to get anywhere, and for the first time in ages, I wasn't fleeing something either. I just drove, windows rolled down, the chilly breeze brushing my face as the burden I'd hauled around for years started to slip away, bit by bit. I didn't feel shattered or adrift. I felt unshackled. I wound up at a little motel just beyond the town limits. Nothing fancy, but it was my spot for the night. I dropped my bag on the carpet, sank onto the edge of the bed, and just took a deep breath. No pressure, no overthinking, no one hovering nearby expecting me to say sorry for something that wasn't my fault. I'd worried that walking away would feel like I'd failed, that I'd second-guess myself or ache for her. But I didn't. What I longed for was the guy I used to be, the one who wasn't always scrambling to prove himself, chasing approval, or twisting into someone he was never meant to be. The guy who deserved better. That night, I slept deeper than I had in forever. The weeks that followed were calm, uneventful. No frantic texts, no tearful voicemails. She didn't plead for me to come back, and I never thought she would. Pride was always her thing. But deep down, I knew she felt it, the void left by the guy who'd spent years bending over backward to keep her smiling. Meanwhile, I was rediscovering someone I'd ignored for too long, myself. I settled into my own place. Nothing grand, nothing showy, just mine. I poured my energy into myself, my job, the stuff that actually brought me calm. I didn't dive into some rebound fling or scramble to fill the hole she might have left. Truth is, she didn't leave a hole. She'd only ever clung to the parts of me that questioned my own value, and now that doubt was history. I never reached out to her again. Didn't need to. Life kept rolling, and I rolled with it. Still, sometimes I wonder if she ever sits alone in that house, swiping through her phone, realizing she never broke me. All she did was set me loose.